Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to be here. I know I say that every week, but I'm here with Mike Schmidt. And actually, Mike and I are both from Massachusetts and both lived in San Diego. He's currently still there, but I'm very excited to talk to you today, Mike, about just health in general. And, Mike became a health coach himself and want to hear a lot about his journey and how he works with clients and some of the cool things that he's doing. But Mike, would love to have you give an introduction and yeah, super excited
Yeah.
to have you on today.
Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it, Kate. And really, really happy and honored to be here. It's been great connecting with you and excited to tell folks about my story.
Yeah.
For me, basically, I grew up in Massachusetts in the suburbs, about 45 minutes south of Boston, and always grew up as an athlete playing basketball, baseball, lacrosse. I kind of just had this burn it off mentality for a long time where I felt like I could just sort of eat whatever I wanted, whether it was buffalo chicken calzones or pizza or Subway or cereal. I didn't know what to cook or how to cook. And I mean, geez, even like frozen waffles, like anything I get my hands on.
Yes.
It was not a pretty picture. And yeah, sure, I was still quote unquote in shape because I worked out a lot and played a lot of sports, but I didn't realize the havoc that I was putting on my body internally, inflammation I was stirring up, and the metabolic dysfunction that was going on, messing up my metabolism. At the time, I kind of just brushed it off as nothing, but I definitely was in that skinny fat, as some people say.
Yep.
And then got introduced to some new workouts after I graduated college, and ended up getting a shoulder injury, which really just opened my eyes up to the human body. And then that kind of trickled me into nutrition, and nutrition really opened up my world. Moved to San Diego, the pandemic hit,
Yep.
started to reflect on really what I wanted to do with my life, and that was help others with nutrition as I went through my nutrition certification course, IN, which is the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Got my nutrition health coaching cert as well as my hormone health certification. And then I did a short course through Stanford Medicine, and then just tons of books and podcasts and self-educated research. And I just kind of came to a point where when I educated myself and changed my own health, for a while I was battling not only that skinny fat, but a lot of chronic acne, chronic hemorrhoids, like constipation, like terrible mental health. Was
Yep.
not taking care of myself, and that was in high school, but also college, right? I mean, college, a lot of us are partying a lot and drinking a lot, not taking care of our body, just inflaming ourselves to the max. And then I hit the corporate world, and not much else had really changed there either. A lot of stress from starting something brand new and hitting the real world, so to speak. And I had never changed my education around nutrition or health. So why would my habits change, so that silver lining of the shoulder injury was a big blessing because it forced me to get into nutrition. And as I changed my own health, like started getting rid of like conventional dairy and conventional gluten and just a lot of things that cause inflammation, like poor sleep and all that. All that stuff went away, like all the acne and
Yep.
hemorrhoids and all the stuff that was really bothering me, not only physically, but from a mental health perspective, big time.
Yep.
And I just became so empowered when I changed my own health. And as my
Yep.
awareness changed, I felt obligated, and I almost felt guilty if I wasn't sharing with other people because I'm like, why does not everybody know this? Everybody deserves vitality and good health.
Yep.
And this is something that should be a basic birthright for everybody.
Yep.
And yeah, a lot of deep reflection during the pandemic. Meditation absolutely transformed my life. I think creating white space for yourself, like time to just kind of be still.
Yep.
Obviously the pandemic forced a lot of us to do that, is super powerful. And that allowed me to really go deep on my passion. And as my awareness changed, I just realized that all the stuff that's chalked up as normal as we get older isn't. And I'm
Yep.
just not willing to accept that,
Yeah.
not only for myself, but for other people. And it's been a strong drive and strong passion that's led me to, launching my business and filing my LLC and taking this full time. I was in a corporate job for 6 years straight, which was great. It was an awesome place. And it was honestly tough for me to leave because it was great people, good income, everything. But I just had a stronger passion for nutrition. So doing it full time for over a year now. It's been amazing.
That's so awesome. No, I'm super excited. And I want to touch on a couple things that you mentioned there because for you to get a shoulder injury, but have all these other issues going on, I feel like most people don't dive into, you just kind of accept it. And you said that
Mm.
too, as like normal. So were you working with a coach or did you just come across this information on your own? Because I feel like that's pretty impressive because
Mm.
I've had injuries throughout the years and just, I never put two and two together to really just focus down on my nutrition. So
Mm.
I think that's great, but
Yeah. So I pretty much had the same workout routine for probably 6 to 8 years, just kind of being that meathead in the gym where I was just like, buys, tries, chest, all this stuff. And I often neglected like doing back workouts, just because it's not something you see every day, right? It's not really like the most aesthetically pleasing or attractive thing. It can be obviously, but
Yep.
your chest and your buys, everything's staring right at you in the mirror. So that was what I focused on for a long time. So between not doing a lot of back workouts and also just being hunched over at a desk in the corporate job every single day, and looking at our down at our phones all the time, the combination of yeah, the lack of back workouts and then also just hunching over and having rounded shoulders and combining that with what I was introduced to, which was like a whole new world that really excited me, was calisthenics. So I was doing like muscle ups and like handstands, tons of stuff on like the Olympic rings, and wasn't rehabbing or prehabbing correctly, like wasn't making the time to do it. And after a while, it wasn't like one instance or like something popped. It was just kind of beating myself up for too long. I became obsessed with the workouts, which was great, and I was in such amazing shape. But yeah, I kind of ran myself a little bit into the ground too much and ended up tearing my labrum in my left shoulder, which has
Oh,
kind of been a trickle effect on a lot of things. But yeah, I think like as I had that injury, I was like just trying to figure out sort of what led to it. And obviously just going so hard for so long was one thing, but also just understanding that what we put into our body helps, not always bulletproof ourselves from injuries, but just like help us recover better. And so very blessed, like one of my best friends growing up, he was the one that introduced me to these workouts and kind of got me into the wellness space. I just started to like, yeah, once I got like studying the human body, that just naturally led into nutrition. And then I started going to like Whole Foods and I, just started to become a little bit more aware and
yeah.
like the power of like food as medicine and like was looking at all the labels and I noticed a lot of the stuff came from California. So that
Yep.
was actually a big reason I moved out to California,
Oh,
was to be to
okay.
the, closer to the local food and fresh food and stuff. And I'd always known it was kind of the mecca for all health and wellness.
Yep.
Um, yeah. And then like, it was just about 6 months after I moved to California that the pandemic hit. Um,
Okay.
and I'd always been interested in nutrition. I'd always been interested in athletics and wellness and sports and working out and everything. And then I got introduced to like a products supplement company that my high school friend reached out to about, and it was like, oh, okay, I've never actually, made the step in the right direction to actually potentially make nutrition into a career. It's always just been like a curiosity and a passion. So I started to try to like sell that just to kind of network in that space. And I ended up reaching out to one of my high school friends who was going through IN at the time. And then she was like, oh yeah, you should check this out. And so I did. And it was like the best decision I've ever made. And it was absolutely the catalyst that got me to where I am now.
Yep.
So yeah, transformed my own health. And I was just like, I felt so passionate about helping others because it transformed my own life. So I had to share it with
Well,
others.
I think that's so incredible. I love your story and I love that you're sharing it and thank you so much. But like that's why it's such a powerful thing when you can all of a sudden realize like I don't need doctors for everything. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need these different meds. It's like
Mm-hmm.
everything evens out. And we live in such a society where it's like, oh, you have skin issues, you have
Mm-hmm.
gut issues, you have all these, and you're on separate pills for each or separate
Yeah.
medications. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a similar experience where all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, like
Mm-hmm.
I feel totally normal and I'm not on any medication. And so anxiety
Yeah.
even can check and stuff like that too. So when
Mm-hmm.
did you start introducing meditation into your whole um, into your whole routine?
Yeah, it was again going back to the pandemic. I was very fortunate. One of my coworkers at the time introduced me to uh, Deepak Chopra, who is really a pioneer in the meditation space. And I think now actually um, he has a, I think he has a course now that's like implemented into IN, which is the school that I went to. So they have IN, there's like the nutrition health coaching cert, and then now they have like a Deepak cert, which is really cool. But yeah, it was during the pandemic, and I went through this like 21-day challenge, and it really just opened up my eyes, literally and spiritually.
Mm.
I know people kind of like bucket spirituality into just like religion, but I think like spirituality is really believing in a higher purpose or something that's like above yourself. I mean, I would even use the example of like the ocean. uh
Yep.
like no matter who you are, the ocean will mess you up. Does not care, you know. Mother
Yep.
nature is super powerful. I always tell people I surf, but I'm not a surfer. You know, I'm not very good, but it's always just really humbling and like cool to like go out into the ocean and just remind yourself how small you are in the best way possible, right? On this big
Yep.
rock that we live on.
Yep.
Um, and like meditation does that for me too. And there's so much science and research around how much it can lower your inflammation and your stress levels. And I think for a lot of people, there's this stigma that you have to completely clear your mind, or it's just too hard. My thoughts are racing, or I don't have time to do it. And it's ironic because I think oftentimes people who say that they're too busy to meditate are actually the ones that need it the most.
100%. Yes. Because those are
um,
keeping their monkey mind going so they don't have to
yeah,
process or focus or be present. So,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's a skill like anything else. And I think again, I'm so grateful for it. Like I would not have found my passion. I mean, the pandemic, like I think woke up a lot of people to just
Mhm.
kind of like it literally forced you to take time to think about what you wanted to do. And I think that it's funny because some people find their passion when they're 16 years old, some people find their passion when they're 55. And I think, in my opinion, it's not just like luck or coincidence in some sort of way. Maybe it is, but it's more so like when did you take time to like actually be
Yep.
with yourself and ask yourself, what do I really want to do with my life? Because that is a skill in and of itself. And you know, in society, it's like, you know, you're born into this world, and then, you know, you're going to elementary school, you go to high school, you apply for college, you get into the college, you know, elect a major, and then you get a job, and then, you know, just the typical American way, like you get married, you buy a house, and then you retire at 65.
Yep.
But
Yep.
never in that path are we taught to like actually be like, okay, like how do I want to impact not only myself but the world? And it's
Yeah.
like we're just like on autopilot, and we're never actually taking time in that prescribed life to like
Yep.
just sit back and be like, okay, what the heck do I want to do? So going back to your question, it's like, yeah, that's how I really got into nutrition, was meditation. I was like, you know,
Wow.
I'm really passionate about like helping others, and I want to make an impact. I really do like the job I'm in. I like the people I work with. The financial freedom is nice, but um, I just know that like helping others with nutrition and their health is like a much stronger pull for me. And so my biggest takeaways from meditation was really just number one, my awareness change. And this
Yep.
is what Deepak always says, like we can't change what we're not aware of. So we
Yep.
literally become blind to our own, you know, habits that hold us back. So that
Yep.
like that's where all change happens first, is through awareness. So that's why I'm a huge advocate for meditation. So number one, awareness, and number two would just be gratitude. um, there's a lot of like exercises in this meditation challenge I did that like forced you to think about all the good that you have in your life. And I think that the synchronicity and just like the appreciation for life as a whole just really amplified for me.
Yep. Yep.
And that's really where things kind of got started. So that's why I approach nutrition very holistically, because the mindset is a huge part of like changing your habits, and your own awareness.
Yep. No, I love that so much. And you touched on so many good points there. And I want to dive into a couple of things, but no, I think addressing health and wellness from mind, body, spirit is like truly, truly the most important thing because,
Hmm. Hmm.
like, for instance, for me, granted, I have Lyme disease and stuff, so it was a little bit different, but I hadn't been as focused on the awareness piece, or I changed my diet and exercise, but I couldn't lose any weight. And I
Hmm.
understand why, but it was because of not getting out of fight flight or, kind of thing. So it was all related and affected. So
Mhm.
no, I just think that's so important. And I truly believe too in universe and we're this little person, but there is a path for each person and we don't slow down to ever do that. And I think that, at least for me, my challenges got so big, like my health got so bad, work was
Mm.
horrible. It was
Mhm.
almost like universe being like, we're gonna make this impossible for you to continue on.
Mm.
Path."
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
forced me to slow down and be present and be aware and
Mm.
dive into
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I
Pain is
I
our teacher, right?
yeah, that's why I was not changing anything. So, and
Mm.
so I love that you bring up those points. And so with the meditation though, I know you mentioned using Deepak Chopra's. Is there like a link we can add in so for people to get if they want to get started with it?
Yeah, yeah. There's I think it's on YouTube. You just type in like Deepak Chopra 21 day meditation challenge.
Okay.
Um,
I'll add.
unfortunately it comes with like the ads, so it kind of disrupts like, when you're trying to meditate. But yeah, I was introduced to kind of like a platform from my coworker um that just like had like the downloaded audios. But yeah, you can access it on YouTube.
Okay. And for people who do come to you and tell you like, I'm really bad at meditating and kind of
Mm.
what's your advice for people getting started with it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is releasing that stigma that you have to clear your mind. I think it's less so about that and more so like turning down the volume on the voices in your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting rid of that stigma first off and foremost, because people always tell me, "Oh, I tried Calm or I tried Headspace or I tried all these meditation apps," which don't get me wrong, those are helpful. But I found that especially even through this like 21 day challenge that Deepak has, it's just very doable. And there's also a little bit of like journaling prompts that go along with it. But I think just from like your mindset going into it is try to erase any stigmas that you might already have and realize that, again, if you are super busy and you feel like you don't have time to meditate, like usually that means you probably need it more than anybody.
Yeah. 100. Yep.
So yeah, I think clearing your mind is not really possible. Like the brain is like always trying to kind of keep us safe, right? And like so there's always going to be thoughts going on.
Mhm.
It's always going to be scanning the environment. So I think just like objectively feeling and viewing the thoughts that come through your head,
Yep.
and not like assigning too much emotion to it. Just like, oh, like why is this coming up, or why is my brain thinking about this a lot? So yeah, not trying to clear your mind, really just trying to like turn down the volume on the voices in your head.
And get curious about like where it's coming from and stuff like that too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. That's why. Yeah. That's where I've found because at first I was one of those people who was like, I can't meditate. Like, I don't have extra time in the day. And I
Hmm.
definitely, certainly needed it. I still am challenged, but now I'm more like, okay, I get curious about what thoughts are coming up and like, okay, just be in the moment, like enjoy
Hmm.
I live by the beach. So I'll go sit by the
Yeah.
water, just
Hmm.
kind of try to bring more presence to.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great point.
Yeah. So, and then, so when you were, did you have coaches and guides through this whole process?
Absolutely. Even coaches need coaches. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I
What
think,
did your health team look like? Your healing team look like?
oh, like going through my
Yeah.
like own health journey.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, well, I would say, I guess, like, yeah, once I started making that transformation, and really just lowering my inflammation, getting rid of all the acne and the hemorrhoids and the constipation and just terrible mental health, like going through IAN, like literally the first 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I felt just like this incredible shift. And it's amazing what the body can do, like given half a chance,
Mhm.
giving it the right raw materials.
Our
And
body, yes, and
yeah,
feel,
yeah.
yeah.
And so um yeah, I think the biggest thing was that like after I saw my own transformation, I really wanted to help others, but I knew that I couldn't do it alone. So what was cool about IN is that they have like a whole community of like other people that are trying to become entrepreneurs, and like people supporting you as well. So that was really helpful. Like as I was going through my own healing journey,
Mhm.
being a part of a community was like really, really impactful. And so that was huge for my own healing journey. And then just like becoming an entrepreneur, right? Obviously very passionate about nutrition and health and very knowledgeable in that space, but running the business and the logistics of that is a whole nother ball game. So
What would
I
it
was
be?
I was fortunate enough to, get reached out to by a business coach. And at this point, like I guess a little over like 2 years running the business, I have hired, I think like maybe 4 different coaches. And I think like that community aspect is super powerful, and just having that mentorship and someone who is where you want to be, and like actually exactly how they got there,
Yeah.
is really, really important. So, I think health and like entrepreneurship and self-development, like your business and your personal life as an entrepreneur, is like impossible to separate the two.
Yeah.
So, with my own healing journey, it was definitely like being in the community of IN, and just feeling empowered to learn more and just staying curious, and then like turning that health transformation into a story to tell other people and help other people, was like from hiring mentors and hiring business coaches and people that can help you actually execute on the things. So,
Yeah. No, it's so funny because people will come to me now, and knowing that I'm in the health and wellness space, and my main business is connecting people with
mm,
practitioners and coaches like yourself. So,
mhm,
and they're always like, well, what can I take? What can I'm like, no, work with
mhm,
a coach. Like and I don't even mean it, but everybody's different.
mhm,
And, there's so much more that goes into it, that it's not just a quick fix. It's
yeah,
about your lifestyle
mm,
and making it work for you and stuff like that. And
absolutely,
having a coach during that is the best money that you will ever spend. And
yeah,
that's why I know with a lot of people too, they're like, but it's all out of pocket, and it's all, I'm like, yeah,
mm,
but learning the things that you learn by working with somebody like yourself, you can't put a price on, because like
mm,
short term, it's like a, yeah, it's expensive, but it's long term, it's for your life, and
mhm.
investment in every aspect of your life. So it's preventative, and I don't know. So I could go on
Yeah,
a tangent about that, but
I
yeah,
totally
it's
agree with you. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, and just on that point too, I encourage people to kind of like reconsider like where they're spending their money, which in my opinion, money is literally just energy. So it's
yes,
like, where are you investing your energy, and how do you want that energy to return back to you? Whether it's like Netflix or alcohol or like going out too much. Obviously, like we want to live our lives and have a good time and do all these things, but like if you're very serious about changing yourself and transforming your health, like I
yep,
mean, health is wealth. And like, if you don't have your health, you really don't have it. You could have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health to enjoy that, then
yep,
what's the point? So like for me too, yeah, every business coach I've invested in, they're not cheap.
yep,
But it's just an incredible return on value and intangible value that I've gotten. And not only has it helped me, but it's help other people. And that's like what the ripple effect is all about. So yeah, I totally
yeah.
agree with all that.
No, 100%. And just even so, I have a couple of things, but touching on jumping into your own business, being from
Mm.
corporate, and I've done the same thing. It's super hard, and I'm so impressed that you've done it, and are profitable and going in. So, what would you say were the biggest? Did you have challenges with that, or did you just go for it? Like,
When I first left my corporate job,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, there was definitely challenges. A
right.
lot
What
of
were some
mental
of the?
blocks. Yeah,
Okay, that's what I found came up for myself as well. So wondering
yeah,
what yours are. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of mental blocks for sure. I think again, like I'm very fortunate for the company I was working at. It was the same company since I graduated college. So for strict 6 straight years. Yeah, great company culture, great financial freedom, a lot of upward mobility and growth. Like I really believed in like the greater mission of what they were doing. I was in the staffing and recruiting field. So I genuinely found nobility in like finding people jobs, right? Helping
Yep.
them build their families and all that. So it was fairly easy to find a lot of fulfillment from it. But again, there was just a greater pull and a greater passion for nutrition. So I was, I had no idea what I was doing in terms of like running a business completely on my own. So again, like hired a couple business coaches, and I had one business coach that helped me kind of walk through the process of like, all right, like what do you want your life to look like logistically? How are you actually going to leave your job? Uh, from like a client perspective, how many clients you want to take on per month, like, what's the
Yep.
lifestyle you want to live and the money you want to make. And so, there's a lot of things as an entrepreneur that you like know are going to be hard, but also like little details that like no matter how much you research, you're just not really going to know until you face it.
Yep.
Whether it's like private insurance or just like little things you never really think about. So half of it was like, okay, yeah, plan it out, you know, create like structure around what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But also like half of it is just like trusting the universe and like understanding that there's this inherent, synchronous pull and like from the universe, right, to like do what you're supposed to do. And
Yep.
so for me, it was like, to be honest, like I was, balancing the corporate job and the business for like a year, maybe a year and a half straight. And like physically, logistically, monetarily, like it just made sense for me to take the leap.
Yep.
And I just kind of had this gut feeling, that it was time. And
Yep.
again, there was a lot of mental blocks on it, a lot of resistance. I kept convincing myself like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. And
Yep.
so that's the hardest thing in life, is like pushing through a commitment, even when it's scary as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times too, we wait for that, like, well, I don't know what I would do, or I don't know what
Mm,
it's going to look like. And knowing that it can change and shift. And I'm not good enough to do this, or
mhm.
yeah, the things creep in like
I think
that.
there's a lot to be said about clarity through action.
Yeah, and I love what you said too, that even you worked with a good coach that laid it all out. So working with a lot of the practitioners and coaches that I've worked with, it's,
Mhm,
you know, they're really passionate about what they're doing and just want to help people. But from
mhm.
the business perspective, it's like they don't know how to charge people or don't know how to.
Yeah.
I think getting a business coach that can help you with all those things and being like,
Mhm,
no, your time is worth money. And like you said,
mhm.
it's energy exchange and
Yeah,
everything. So
exactly.
that's what it'd be. Yeah. What would be your biggest piece of advice to other coaches and practitioners that are getting started?
Hmm. I would say constantly reminding yourself of the bigger picture, and constantly reminding yourself of your why, because there's zero doubt that times are going to get tough and running your own business is going to be very difficult. And it's really easy to like burn the midnight oil and just like keep cranking, keep cranking, keep cranking, and building the business as fast and best as you possibly can. But I think even something I'm learning from my new business coach is like the value in rest and recovery. Because to be honest, like I've definitely put myself through some bouts of real burnout, like physically and mentally, and it's not easy to recover from. So kind of leaning more into that rest and recovery is just as important as the work that you're actually putting in.
I love that.
And yeah, it seems kind of obvious, maybe a little bit like overrated, but it really is part of the process, and it's like part of becoming the best version of yourself, so you can show up in the best energy for your clients and the people that you're trying to serve.
Yep, and it's also taking the shame out of the rest time because that's
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
remember being like, I'm exhausted, and like I would
Yeah.
take an afternoon off or something, but then be beating myself up about all the thing, and I'm like, nope, you got to
Hmm.
work for that too, because like you say, if you can't help yourself, how can you help all of your clients and all
Yeah.
people?
And I think there's a lot to be said too about like, especially if you're transitioning from a corporate job, like a lot of reprogramming of like, do have to be busy all the time, like back to back to back to back meetings.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, that happens in entrepreneurship. But I think the beauty of entrepreneurship is that you can kind of like make your own schedule that conserves your energy. So again, you can show up best for other people. But like
yep,
anytime I have maybe a couple hour like open block, sometimes I get that like, and I used to wear this as a badge. It's like, yeah, I have this like productive paranoia. Like I have to be busy. I have to be doing something. But that I think is just again programming from this like society that we live in, that we always have to be working. But as humans, like just like all the other animals out there, like we're meant to play, we're meant to rest, like we're meant to enjoy this life. So it's hard and it's a skill. But that's something that I've kind of had a challenge with, is just like reprogramming, like, okay, like you deserve this time, you deserve this rest, and not feeling guilty about it.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that, and then that's why we were meant to do those things, and that's
Hmm.
why I
Hmm.
don't know when it shifted to corporate grind, but
Yep.
it
Hmm.
certainly did. So and so now even switching over, so that's like kind of one audience, but switching over to potential clients and customers, what's your niche? Like who can you help?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think really I often target busy professionals just because I, of course, was one myself in the corporate world for 6 straight years. So I feel like I can relate to a lot of things that people are going through. And I think that's why a secondary portion of why I became so passionate about it is because I was, balancing my own business and still in the corporate job
Yep.
for like a year and a half straight. And there was a lot of tools that I was equipping myself with as I was building my business and like from all the education I did from a health and nutrition perspective, that really helped me thrive in the business world and like really just less so focusing on like calorie counting and like aesthetics. And I mean, all that stuff is awesome and it can be very helpful, but really just focusing on people who are trying to improve their gut health, improve their mental health, which really go hand in hand. As I'm sure you know, the vagus nerve connects those two things. And oftentimes the gut is referred to as the second brain, although the more research I do, I feel like it should be the first brain. I mean,
Well, they
90%
say,
of our
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
I
I
was
think
going
I
to say 90% of
said
our
like,
serotonin, our happiness hormones, 70% of our immune system,
yep.
90% of the neurotransmitters in our body go from our gut up to our brain through the vagus nerve and not the other way around. You think about things like gut feeling, all that stuff is like very real, trusting your intuition. So I would say my niche is really, you know, between like busy professionals and folks that really want to amplify their energy, genuinely just feel better, because that's something I hear all the time,
Yeah.
and really improve like their brain health and their gut health to make themselves happier and more cognitively sharp in the workplace. And it's something I've even noticed too. Like it's so easy to burn yourself out, whether you are an entrepreneur or you're in the corporate world. And it's, to be honest, something that I've had to deal with. And there's been some residual effects from that. And I'm realizing that like pushing through isn't always the best solution. I mean, obviously a lot of times we have to like toughen up and do these things, but again, that rest aspect is so important. um so I think really just anyone who's like feels like they're kind of going through burnout, or like their cognitive function isn't as sharp as it once was, or they just know that their gut health is kind of off, like I always say like gut health equals mental health. So I'm
Yeah.
really passionate about kind of just nourishing our bodies for the better, and really amplifying and enhancing our gut and mental health as much as possible.
I think that's amazing. And then I also want to dive into too, and I can speak from personal experience about that because I know I used to think it was crazy if you told me before. If I've worked with health coaches in the past and they've been like, well, your anxiety will like go away if you start working on your gut health. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it
Mm.
100% when
Yeah.
I was working through like with a practitioner at the Lyme and stuff, I remember calling her and being like, my hormones have balanced out and I don't have anxiety. Like
Mm. Mhm.
all went away, and that
Yeah.
was mind-blowing to me because you can talk about it being connected, but it's really all connected,
Yeah,
so
it is. And I mean, even like skin health too, right? Again, that's
yeah,
like kind of the basis of my initial story, right? Is that I had chronic acne, chronic hemorrhoids, like oftentimes our skin is actually an inside job. There's a billion-dollar industry like cosmetics and stuff.
yeah,
But it really starts with your gut, right?
yep.
And I noticed that really helped when I started cutting out the gluten and the dairy and just like an inflammatory lifestyle, and all that stuff started to to go away. So yeah, everything begins in the gut. It really does.
Yeah, yep, 100%. And then so if somebody is like potentially they're going through burnout and wanna work with you, do you have a
Mm,
program? How long do you recommend people I know everybody's different, but
mhm.
what
Yeah, yeah.
with
So
you?
my flagship program is a 3-month program where I walk people through really the foundation of what it takes to create a healthy lifestyle versus like a short-term diet that isn't going to last long term. So very holistic approach. So of course, nutrition, health, but also mindset work and meditation, and also sleep health. Because one of the biggest things I learned from IN is that, and that I also teach my clients, is like the idea of primary food. So basically everything that's off of your plate that affects your secondary food, which is everything that goes onto your plate. So primary food being like, your relationships, your stress levels, your work-life balance, and how that affects like, obviously you emotionally, and emotional eating is a big thing for a lot of people because it's a nervous system regulator, and that's totally biologically normal. But yeah, my flagship program is a 90-day program, but oftentimes obviously health is a lifelong journey. So I have a lot of clients that end up extending with me. which is great. And then I also have like these online modules. I have 12 different modules. The first like month is really about kind of flipping your metabolism, because that's, literally 88% of Americans have a metabolism that doesn't work properly. Like literally
Yeah.
only 12% of Americans are healthy. And that number has actually gone down in terms of the 12%. I think it's now like 94% of Americans have a metabolism that doesn't work right.
Are we talking about too, when you say, this might be a dumb question because we're talking about, but the overall metabolic health, like, so when you say like, yeah, like
Yeah.
4% of the US is unhealthy metabolically, like,
Yeah, and it's like the 5 different markers. I think it's whether like blood pressure or like blood sugar, waist circumference, and like 2 others, without the need for any sort of medication.
that's like mind blowing, by the way.
Yeah, right. And this is like, you'll see that as like, okay, working out a ton, not seeing results. It's like oftentimes because we need to like address our metabolism. And of course, in the standard American diet, it's a lot of carb heavy things that spike our blood sugar, and then put us on these like energy roller coasters.
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, addressing the metabolism is huge. And then to kind of get into the technical part of nutrition, like how to read ingredients, how to read labels, how to properly grocery shop. Like, I mean, I get very detailed to give people that step by step. I literally have like GoPro videos of me meal prepping in my kitchen, and like, yeah, what to look for in the grocery store, all that stuff. And then the last portion is kind of tying it all together with like mindset and meditation type work.
Okay.
And then I recently launched like group coaching to all my active clients, which I'm really excited about,
Awesome.
because not only am I a mentor for all my clients, but like now they're kind of connecting with each other and becoming each other's mentors and accountability partners. And it's just cool to like be a part of a tribe. And now it feels like a real community. So that's been something I've been very excited about.
I'm so excited for you. I think that's amazing. And to create what you created is, it's a testament to yourself and being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and
Mm,
following your passions and just creating or taking in all the knowledge that you have. So I give a lot of props to you, but I think that's
thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
And yeah, no, it's so great. And then can you talk about too, so if I was to, and this actually happened when I first started working with coaches when I was in
Mhm.
corporate, and that's why I always like to touch on it. But if somebody told me all of those things, it's even overwhelming to hear that. So how do you
Mm,
work with people on like fitting in changes to their lifestyle at their pace? And because that sounds, it's like, oh my God, I have to change my whole life. And how am I gonna do
mm,
that? I'm already overwhelmed. And so
mm.
how do you work with people on that?
That is an excellent question. And yeah, I myself definitely uh, fall victim to the analysis paralysis sometimes, the shiny object syndrome, information overload. And that's definitely the world that we live in today. I mean, you can
Yeah.
open up your Instagram, open up TikTok, open up any platform, and you'll be bombarded with health information. It's like one day this is good, one day this is bad.
Yes. Like, oh my
And
God, I can't handle it. Yeah.
yeah, and so I think like little by little, a little becomes a lot. And so what I do is, put my clients through that initial 90 days, and then, obviously reassess. And if they're extending 3 or 6, 9 months, however long, kind of taking it from there. But really, like, something I hear every single day is, whether it's from prospective clients or new clients I'm onboarding, it's like, I know what I need to do, but for some reason I just don't do it.
I
So
I've definitely said that before.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think we all have, but like, it sounds obvious, but literally just like getting back to the basics and getting reminders of those basics is really important. I mean, like the first week with most of my clients, I address like hydration, because oftentimes we're mistaking our hunger for thirst. And if you look at, most produce, fruits and vegetables, like 85 to 94% is water, right? So our bodies are actually just wanting real food. So the first thing is just kind of like, yeah, getting back to the basics, like hydrating, and then also just like trying to eat real food, which sounds obvious. Again, people like know that, okay, yeah, to be healthy, you eat fruits and vegetables and you work out and you sleep well. But do
Yeah.
we all do that? No, because we have crazy busy jobs that we're burning ourselves out in, and we forget and we put our health to the wayside.
Mm.
So the way I kind of piece it out is like, okay, everyone's different, everyone needs different things. I have like these, sectioned out modules, but it's like, all right, what do you need right now? What's like
Yeah.
the biggest thing that you're working on? Okay, let's focus on that for a week, because I can give you lots of information for sure. But if I'm to throw everything all at you at once, like, you're going to freeze and you're not going to know what to do. So it's like, okay, what do you need right now in this moment? Like, what are we going to work on the next 7 days? Kind of like niche it down into like more micro goals versus like, okay, you're in this 3-month program that will likely be extended. But that might be a little daunting to think about 90 days. So like what right now can lead to that bigger goal? And let's just work on that for this week. So like recently I had a client join my program, and she was telling me like the first thing that hits her lips in the morning is coffee. And we're trying to like kind of work on her hormone health. And, she's doing a lot of like intense HIIT workouts and like not eating enough throughout the day. And then just kind of leading to like this binging later on. So just like, it sounds backwards, but yeah, literally just like eating more, nourishing her hormones. But the one thing that we changed, like first week she joined the program, I was like, okay, instead of having it be coffee, like drink water first thing in the morning and try to delay your caffeine for 90 minutes and let me know how you feel. And we talked the next week and she was like, oh my God, I'm not getting those like afternoon energy crashes. Like I feel this more like natural energy. So that's like been the baseline that we've started at. Right. And even in the past, I've had clients that tell me like, I was like, yeah, how's your hydration? And this client was like, yeah, like I don't really drink water. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I usually just have like caffeine and soda. I was like, okay, so let's have you start drinking water. And literally
Yeah.
within this doesn't happen for everybody, but she started drinking water for a week straight. We met the following week to follow up, and she literally lost 6 pounds in a week. And it just like goes to show you, like literally given half a chance, it's amazing what the body can do to recover.
Yes. Yeah. And it just needs the right things. That's what,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 100%. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. And that does help because I remember again, like I said, when I first started working with someone, they were like, it's
Mm-hmm.
only gonna be 2 years. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, but when can I find like some relief? So I needed to
Mm-hmm.
hear it a different way. So breaking it down by the week would have been
Mm-hmm.
super helpful for
Mm-hmm.
me. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's why it's not a quick fix. It's about making it your lifestyle. And so
Yeah, exactly.
that said, now that this is your lifestyle, do you have cravings for like, what were your like bad food go-tos, I would say? Like, do you have the cravings for the pizza or, uh,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think and I was just talking to another client about this recently. I think when you like give your body what it actually needs, which is
mhm,
real food and produce and fruits and vegetables, you literally start to change your taste buds. Not only that, but like once you start to feed your body with the real right raw materials, you genuinely like don't really crave the junk food.
yeah,
Um, I had a meeting with my client yesterday and she was talking about like she's been in the program for like 3 weeks now. She's lost like 6 pounds, like making all these great changes. She's eating more. She's literally eating more and she's losing weight,
yeah,
which is awesome. Which
yeah,
sounds backwards. It's like you nourish your body, like the inflammation will lower and then you'll naturally lose weight. And oftentimes people are just like, okay, calorie restriction, like which to a degree can work, but it really depends on the person. And that's not always the exact answer. Anyway, my point is she was saying that she was like out with her family and they all wanted to get like Chick-fil-A and she was just like, she ordered it for everybody, but she was just saying how she like genuinely like she didn't order anything because she didn't want it. She
yeah,
genuinely did not want it or crave it or desire it.
yeah,
But with all that being said, obviously like there are times where you're out at a wedding or you're like with family or you're traveling and something I definitely preach is that 80-20 like lifestyle. Really leaning into like genuinely wanting to be healthy, but also knowing that sometimes our resources are limited.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm from Massachusetts. My whole extended family's from Long Island. So I know what a good bagel and a good pizza tastes like.
Oh, yeah.
So if I
Yeah.
have an opportunity to get some good, like genuine, authentic, New York pizza,
Uh-huh.
I'll definitely dive in for sure. Obviously gluten, especially conventional wheat can be pretty inflammatory, but also too, the body is resilient, right? And so like I think sometimes trying to be super perfect, which honestly I've been guilty of as a health coach, trying to optimize all the time, can honestly be a little bit more of a stressor than just like leaning into that balance. So for me to answer your question, long story short, like, yeah, I think a good slice of like New York authentic pizza, right? I mean, I think there's a big difference between like treating yourself to like Domino's or some
Yeah.
like super highly processed food and like, a genuine, like real good, New York pizza. And another example too, my friend actually just came back from Long Island recently and he literally brought back like, not even kidding, like 60 frozen bagels.
That's
Had them in
amazing.
the freezer. Yeah. So it literally made me so nostalgic. And I think this is again like the
Uh-huh.
dynamic of food. It's not just like, okay, eat your fruits and vegetables, do this, do that. Like people can tell you that all day long, but like, did you grow up in an Italian family? Did you grow up in a Mexican family? Did you grow up in like a Latin American family that had certain food culture that affects like your emotions that you have towards food?
Yeah.
So I literally got like nostalgic when he brought those bagels back. It like literally reminded me of like my aunts and my uncles and like
That's
growing up
great.
with them. So I was like, hell yeah, like I'm gonna have this authentic New York bagel because nobody makes it better than they
Yeah.
do in New York.
Yeah.
So I made a couple fried eggs and put some avocado on there and had like an everything New York bagel, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds it. I
Yeah.
know. That's awesome. And I think you bring up a good point too. And one, I've had conversations with practitioners and coaches in the past, but when you try to be too perfect, that's
Hmm.
more stressful. Like if you're going out to eat, go enjoy the food, enjoy the
Yeah.
meal, enjoy
Yeah.
like don't be stressed about what they're cooking it in and what like
Uh-huh.
it's that can cause way more stress to your body than the
Absolutely.
actual food is at that point.
I
So
totally agree. Yeah.
that's yeah, the 80-20 rule is a good one to go by and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
um oh, and I had another question. Sorry. I'm like
Very good. I was gonna say, as a health coach, like I'll be totally honest, like I've definitely fell into that trap of just like trying to be perfect. And it has caused me, a lot of stress in a lot of ways. And I think,
yep,
experience and like pain and feedback is like how we change and how we become better. And I think yeah, I've gone through that process a little bit, and I'm leaning into more of just, yeah, understanding the body is resilient. Obviously,
yes,
unfortunately, we live in a very industrialized food culture. So like you genuinely want to be aware and be careful and be knowledgeable about the stuff that you're consuming, because the raw
yeah,
materials you give your body is like literally what you become.
yep,
Um, but yeah,
yep,
again, leaning into that resilience a little bit and understanding the body can handle a lot. It's not the decisions you make every once in a while. It's more about the consistent decisions that you're making, and also too making sure that like that one decision isn't like derailing you.
yeah,
Okay, like okay, now I had my cheat meal, like I messed up. Now I have to like start from scratch. It's like
yeah,
that's something I really teach my clients a lot. It's obvious, but it's like giving yourself grace is it's a skill like anything else, but it is so important. And it's
yes,
really cool to see the shifts. Like when I'm in my one-on-one sessions and my group sessions with my clients, it's like
yeah.
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does 100%. It really,
Mhm.
really does. And that's even part of my healing. Like I was having, I remember I was having pasta and I was at like once a week, I would pretty
Mhm.
much have like whatever. I would have some drinks on occasion, but my body had started to function properly. So it
Mhm.
was able to, like, I was still losing weight and
Mhm.
felt great. And I was like, oh
Mhm.
my God, I could never eat these things before. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was like, oh, okay, my body's functioning now and can
Mhm.
actually like process the bad stuff out. And
Exactly. And that's the beauty of like really long-term creating a healthy lifestyle, is that your body becomes more resilient, and then you can lean into those, indulgences more often because you don't feel as bad as you did before, and you don't feel as guilty about it because you have a foundation, a toolbox to lean back on.
but you are right when you say your taste buds change because there are also
Hmm.
times now where I'm like, oh, like I know how I'm gonna feel when I eat that, so I don't want to deal with that. I
Yeah.
don't feel like crap.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And I think a lot of people have this like stigma that nutrition has to be restrictive, but when you actually educate yourself on the power of what it can do for you or against you, like it makes it, yeah, a lot more empowering than it is like, oh, I can't have this.
yeah,
And like you
yeah,
genuinely start to pass up on stuff because you know how it's going to make you feel. So that's where I feel like the difference is made.
yeah, 100%. And I do want to talk about too. I know you recently you were doing grocery store shopping with
Mhm.
people, and what was it that you came up with from that, and how many people were going? Can you talk a little bit about that? I think it's so amazing that you did that. I wish you were more local
Yeah.
here to be doing
Yeah.
that, but I just think that's a fantastic idea.
Mm.
It's awesome you did it. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I was at Whole Foods like a month or so ago, and this fine older woman asked to borrow my height, and so of course I, as the gentleman that I am, or I like to think I am, helped her out, and I grabbed the product, and of course, as a nutrition coach, I had to look at the label and like look at the ingredients, and I saw some stuff in there I didn't really agree with. So I had to
Yep.
tell her. I was like, I can't let this poor woman like unconsciously, consume inflammatory oils that aren't going to help her body. So
Yep.
so we were just like chatting, and and turns out she's from New York as well, and so we just like hit it off.
That's awesome.
um and and then I kind of just like off the cuff was like, hey, I've always thought about doing this. I've never done it before, but like, would you be open to me just like kind of shadowing you around the grocery store and like giving you feedback, giving you tips? You can ask me questions along the way. Like, this is a completely like safe space, judgment free zone. Like, I would just love to try to help you. And she's like, yeah, she's like, as long as you have the time for it, like, I'm down. So we ended up doing it, and it was really cool. She learned a lot. She was honestly, I was impressed. She knew a lot.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see. But yeah, then I was like, oh, maybe I could like offer this to other people just as like an experiment. So yeah, then I kind of put out a message on my social platforms and had some people reach out. So picked like the first 3 winners. So actually I haven't performed those yet, but I'm planning on doing it this weekend, actually this Saturday.
Awesome.
Looking to get some content around it too, because I think a lot of people can relate to it. So it'll be kind of cool to see what
Yeah.
we come up with. But I mean, the word healthy and like eating clean is very subjective. And I'm not here to say that I'm like the definer of like what it means to be healthy, because that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I do think there's a lot of mislabeling and like greenwashing in the food industry, where it's like you think you might be eating quote unquote healthy, but you're really not.
Yeah.
So, first things first, I always tell people is that like it sounds obvious, but like eating real food is the
Yes.
best thing you can do for your body. And I'm all for all these like newer, healthier, lesser evils. But at the end of the day, like if it's in a box or in a bag, like it's still a heavily processed food, right? And like our bodies recognize real Mother Nature whole foods the best.
Yeah.
So again, it sounds obvious and everyone kind of knows what to do, but like getting yourself to eat real raw food all the time is a challenge just because of the world that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's funny you say that too, because I saw one where you did like a prepackaged. I would be curious to see, and maybe we can add that as a follow-up in the show notes, but what people's biggest learnings were from shopping
mm,
with you and stuff like that. I'd be curious. But I know just from watching your content and talking to you and stuff, I remember the biggest thing that shocked me was even just like the prepackaged salads. Cause like
mhm,
yeah, I was like, oh my God, you're right. Cause they do put
mm.
there to keep them packaged and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, that was just side note that I was like, wait a minute. And olive oil is another one that you have to look into
Mm,
to make sure
mhm.
it's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, it's easy to I've done it myself as a health coach because 'cause I'm always, like, experimenting and researching. It's easy to, like, kinda drive yourself crazy with all, like, the, details and stuff, but I'll be honest, like, it's just kind of the reality of the industrialization of food. It's, like, not a lot of people that's why it's great to outsource, nutrition in terms of, like, if you're trying to get help with it, get better at it, to a coach who's done the
Yep.
research and, like, you know, puts in
Yep.
all the effort and time to know the importance of this stuff. Because I do think that details matter, but not a lot of people think about, like, where did this food actually come from? Like,
Mhm.
how many steps did it take for this item I'm about to put in my grocery cart actually take to get into this grocery store and into my cart? Like, was it a thing that's in a box or a bag that was made in a factory and they had to put all these ingredients in it and like all this stuff? Like, that's not going to be something that's really fully recognized by your body versus like an
Yeah.
apple or an orange or a banana. It's like you kind of just pick it off the tree and it's in the grocery store.
Yep.
So there's definitely a scale of like processed food, right? Like
Yeah.
minimally processed food to like ultra processed food.
Yep.
But yeah, I think just like understanding where your food actually comes from, and that to the point of olive oil, like unfortunately, like avocado oil and olive oil are now being kind of cut with like the inflammatory seed oils, like canola oil and safflower oil. Like
Yep.
you'll notice when you look at the back of the bottles, it'll say like olives from like Spain, Greece, Italy, like wherever, and it's like that's like kind of like a blend, which usually isn't the best sign. I actually use a company called Costa Rica, and it comes in like a dark blue bottle. It's all like 100% organic, extra virgin, cold pressed,
Oh,
from single source from Greece. And I came across it the other day, and like actually reached out to like their team on social, and they were kind of giving me some more details. And yeah, it's a super high quality olive oil. that I'd
We'll
recommend.
link to them. We'll link to them too, because
Yeah.
I'm interested in all this stuff too. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think that's awesome. And that's why and for people listening too, it's not to get overwhelmed, it's just to get
Mm.
curious.
Yeah,
And
exactly. But those
yeah.
details matter for sure. And,
Yep.
if you're facing any sort of like inflammation, or you're kind of confused about certain symptoms you're feeling, like,
Yep.
obviously sleep and all these other things play a huge factor, but the raw materials you're putting in your body every single day, you're becoming that, right? You become the food you eat.
Yep. Yep. Now, when you're working with your clients too, what do you find are their biggest challenge, or have there been themes of what some of their biggest challenges were or
Yeah.
are?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things I hear from a lot of people is like, how do I stay healthy while I travel?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it makes a lot of sense because convenience food, and the convenient option is oftentimes the most unhealthy one. But I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things, is like, how do I stay healthy while I travel? So I think like I help people kind of lean into that. First off, the mindset and understanding that oftentimes our resources are going to be limited, but how do you make the best decisions based on like where you're at? How do you best prepare yourself? So I say that, and then also just like not having a great wind down or morning routine,
Yeah.
which I often think that the morning routine starts the night before with the wind down routine. Because if you're not getting good sleep, then you're not going to be as motivated to wake up earlier and do things in the morning.
Oh yeah.
So people like, I would say like a big thing that we actually just talked about on my group coaching call is like looking at our phones before bed, which literally suppresses your melatonin by 50%, which is obviously your main sleep hormone.
Does it really? I
Yeah,
knew it
blue
was
light
bad.
is
I
very
actually
intrusive.
didn't realize that. Wow.
Yep. And also, not to mention that like your phone and like a laptop or whatever electronic you might be on, it's
Yep.
a stimulant, right? And like we wouldn't drink coffee before bed, which is a stimulant, but we're
Yep.
still looking at our electronics. Like, it takes a while for our brain to kind of like shut off and slow down.
Yeah.
Um, so honestly, like, the mantra I kind of live by is like protect the first and last 90 minutes of your day. So I don't
Yep.
even look at my phone. Like, it's always on airplane mode or do not disturb, like first thing in the morning. And then like 90 minutes before I go to bed, because I like to wind down and maybe do some like foam rolling on my muscles to like send that parasympathetic signal to my body to start, calming down. Um, but even like, I'll be honest, I'd say like 90% of the time, I'm really, really, really good at that because I know how it's going to make me feel the next morning. But last night, actually, I did a run. I'm in this like run club here in San Diego, and
Yeah.
it was a little later. It ended at like, I think 7:45 or like 8 o'clock. And then I came back and was kind of just like wrapping some stuff up, from the work day. And it was like 9 o'clock. And I was like, oh, like I should be getting to bed.
Yep.
Got this podcast in the morning.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
noticed that like, wow, because I didn't really like kind of dedicate that wind down routine, I like took me a little bit longer than usual to fall asleep. So it's just wild how much like, the melatonin suppression and just like the stimulation from electronics can affect your sleep. And like,
Wow.
obviously I'm like, nutrition is my main gig, right? But like sleep is the cornerstone that really sets up the like theme for
Yes.
the day. It's like,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than a good night's sleep, but when you're not sleeping well, like, you can feel that. And
It
then you're
affects
not as motivated to eat as well. You're not motivated to work out. It's just this whole trickle effect. So
it affects everything. That's
yeah.
why I've realized even more and more over the years that I need 8 hours. Some people are like, I can function off 6. I'm like, not, I
Yeah.
cannot. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Hmm.
know. And
Yeah.
trouble sleeping. So I'm actually gonna try this like wind down.
Yeah, you should. I always tell people, try to switch it from your wind down routine to a wind down routine.
I love and that's
Yeah.
actually last night was a good example too, because I didn't get in. I love going to sit at the beach, but then
Mhm.
like I hadn't eaten anything yet. So it's 8 o'clock when I get home and
Yeah.
I made like just a burger patty and
Mm-hmm.
was just having that. But I didn't eat until 8:30 and then
Mm-hmm.
did read and wasn't on my phone. But still, it like I forever to fall asleep last night. So that's actually
Yeah, I try to tell people to try to cut their eating window like 2, 3 hours before they go to bed.
yep,
So your body's not worried about digesting; it's just worried about sleeping and getting that rest because you don't want to be, yeah,
yep, yep,
digesting as you're trying to sleep. Yeah, I would say like the staying healthy while they travel, like wind down and like phone before bed. Those are probably like the two biggest ones, and then also just like meal prepping. I always say that like once hunger strikes, it's already too late. Like whatever you have in front of you is what you're going to eat.
yep,
So yes, it takes like some time on the front end. But I know for me personally, like, and most busy professionals, like to cook 5 times a week or seven
Oh,
times a week, cook every night. It's not only not really realistic, it's like exhausting especially if you're in a busy corporate job and you're working 8 to 5 and then you like go for a workout after, or if you work out in the morning, it's like, that's a long day. And then the energy it takes to bring out all the materials, cook all the food, clean all the stuff, like to do that every single night is a little exhausting. I mean, I love a fresh meal. That's always awesome. But like for me, I try to cook like maybe twice a week and just kind of rotate my meal prepping. And especially like if you're really busy going meeting to meeting, so nice to just know that you have the right healthy food ready and available to you, versus like, oh crap, I'm hungry, what do I do? Oh, I'm just gonna grab Uber Eats, or like, this is the only thing I have in my house, so I'm just gonna like put this together and I'm snacking and I'm grazing. Whereas like if you're meal prepping, you have like
yeah.
full complete meal of, hopefully a healthy protein, a fiber, a fat, maybe some leafy greens, and you're getting that genuine nourishment in. So yeah, I think like making time for meal prep is really important. And a lot of people say like, I don't have time, but it's like oftentimes in our lives, it's more about just the stuff that we decide to prioritize. So like kind of doing
It's
the
almost,
assessment, yeah, a
yeah.
realistic check or assessment, like where am I spending my time, or if I'm really, investing in my health and see that intangible value on return there, like I need to spend more time, putting the work in up front, just like anything else in life.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, when you actually reflect on, well, like, where did you spend your time when you were not at work? And it's like,
Yeah.
did you watch TV for half an hour? Because that could have been like you prioritize that over prep, which is, I'm fine, but don't,
Mm-hmm.
but just, yeah, like kind of be more aware of where you're
Yeah.
spending.
And like, even like, I just encourage a lot of my busy professional corporate clients to like just schedule in like getting time away from your desk like you would any other meeting that you have with your boss or your coworkers, or you have a doctor appointment. Like all that stuff always comes first, but like where are we in our calendars actually putting, okay, go for a walk, or like step away from your desk, or like take a full hour to take your lunch, because if it's not on your calendar, it's probably not happening. So I
Yeah,
encourage a lot of people to like, yeah, put that in their schedule just like they would any other mandatory meeting.
I need to take that advice too. So yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm at my desk all day and like, oh yeah, but
Yeah.
anyways, no. What's your biggest piece of, I know I asked for like other fellow people getting started, but what's your
Mm.
biggest piece of advice in life in general, but for people that are on a health journey?
Ooh, in life in general, that's a big
Yeah.
one.
I know that's, I leave it
um,
open-ended because sometimes you have that thing that you live by,
no,
but
it's, and I get a lot, and I'm super inspired and super fulfilled that I get this. But like when I tell people what I do for a living, they're like, "Oh my God, that's super inspirational. That's super inspiring. Like, good for you for leaving your job and like taking this leap. And it's super scary, and like you're chasing your passion. It's not easy." And so it's cool to like see people looking up to that. And sometimes I kind of take it for granted, but it's really fulfilling.
yeah,
And met a couple of people last night where that kind of happened. And one thing I always say is like, remaining curious, I think, is probably one of the most important things you can do for yourself. And expressing that curiosity through white space, like I said before, like
yeah,
not even if it's like meditating or walking or breath work, like literally just like being in silence and like seeing what comes up and being okay with what comes up. So that you can actually like kind of try to find your passion, because that's ultimately one of the biggest drivers of health that
hmm,
they've studied even in the blue zones, is like your sense of purpose.
yeah,
It's like, why am I here on this planet in the first place? And those were literally the questions I was asking to myself, like when I was meditating and like during the pandemic. It's like, what really lights me up, so I think the best advice, yeah, is just remaining curious and like constantly like working to create the skill of like, how do I find my passion? Because it is a skill like anything else. And
yeah,
then secondly, I would say read a lot of books.
yeah,
You can download decades in a week. You can download a decade in a month. And there's so many books that have changed my life, right? And when the pandemic first happened, my goal that first year was to read 12 books over the course of the year. So basically one book a month. And I completely transformed my life doing that. And
wow,
admittedly, like ever since I really started launching the business, I haven't been as good about reading,
yeah,
but I want to get more back into it because I know there's so many little nuggets that just like completely
yeah.
can change the course of your life. So just, yeah, I would say like remaining curious and really just trying to ask yourself like what lights you up, because oftentimes it's not about doing too much, it's doing too little of what
Yep.
fires you up,
Yeah.
is where you kind of start feeling stuck. So
Yep.
that would be my life advice. And then from like a nutrition and health standpoint, I think so many people are caught up in listening to other people and not listening to their own body.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would say that's my biggest piece of advice, is listen to what your body is telling you and stop getting so caught up in the noise of like keto or vegan or paleo, or you have to do this, you have to do that. It's like bio individuality is the most important thing, because one person's food could literally be another person's poison.
Yep.
So you're literally wasting your time if you're just constantly trying to copy paste or say like, what's the next best supplement, or what's like this crazy
Yeah.
thing that's going to like, change everything for me. I think a lot of nutrition and like getting into better health is like really kind of getting into your nervous system and like your mindset around like, why am I doing this in the first place?
Yeah.
I think that's so important. So yeah, trying to like block out the noise and just, you know, really, really find something that resonates with you, or find someone that resonates with you, because whether it is you're trying to launch a business, or you're trying to fix your health, or you're trying to improve your finances, like trying to do it on your own, you can get decently far. But if you want to make an actual transformation, I
Yeah.
definitely recommend like working with somebody. And I think the human brain is so wired to be like, I can do this on my own, or like, I don't want to ask for help, because the vulnerability is a very scary thing.
Yep.
But
Right
what I
on.
say to my,
Yeah.
yeah, because our body's always trying to keep us safe and save face. And so one thing I always say to people, especially like when they first join my program, like that they should be so proud of themselves with, is that like that vulnerability is a very hard skill. So like, getting the help, I always say, is the easy part, but asking for it is the hard part.
Yep.
So like I always encourage people and remind them like, you should be super proud that you've reached out, you've kind of assessed where you're at realistically, and you've asked for help, because that's where the real transformation happens.
Yep. I love all of that. Yeah, all of it. And I think we're such a society that lacks purpose. So like
Hmm.
knowing that, and then also the asking for help piece is huge. So I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. Now, is there anything else that we didn't cover on here that you wanted to touch on? I mean, I could talk to you forever about all the
I
components and
know, same.
yeah.
Um, Anything else I wanted to chat about? Nothing I can really think of right now. I think like, with my own journey and in life in general, like we're just constantly reiterating, right? I think like
Yeah.
pain is our teacher. It's always like there's nothing really good or bad in life. It's more just like feedback. And look, as a health coach, I've experimented with a lot. I've gone through a lot. Being an entrepreneur has been very rewarding, but also super challenging. And there's been some ups and downs. And although like my business name is Superfood, like superhuman, like I don't think being a superhuman means like you're this like crazy high level, super optimized, healthiest person you've ever been in your life. It's more like assessing where you're at, like getting vulnerable with yourself, admitting kind of what your mistakes are, like where you need to improve, asking for help, and not trying to be perfect, or not trying to be overly optimized, because that is a chronic stressor in
Yeah.
and of itself.
Yep.
Um, so again, just like being willing to just like give yourself more grace, understand where you're at, and yeah, not trying to be perfect all the time, I think is really important. It's something I've had to learn honestly myself. Like right as a health coach, like you're always trying to optimize, and
Yep.
can sometimes throw yourself into a little bit of a tizzy doing that, and a little bit of you
Yep.
know recurring just kind of like stress cycle. So yeah, I think just really leaning into vulnerability and like appreciating where you're at, giving yourself grace is like super, super important.
Yep.
So yeah.
I love that. No, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, being vulnerable and
Mhm.
sharing your story and how you help people. But I'm super excited to have connected with you and to share your information with this audience. So
Yeah, likewise.
yeah.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I love it. Thank you so much for taking another holistic view of your health with us. I hope you've really enjoyed today's discussion, and as always, take control of your own wellness journey by exploring the practitioners and modalities available near you or on our directory at www.holistichealthcollab.com. Don't forget to subscribe here so you don't miss an episode, and you can also find more holistic health tidbits at Holistic Health Collab on Instagram. Please leave a rating and review to help us reach more people that might need to hear this information. If you have any questions about today's show or any ideas for future episodes, or if you just want to reach out, you can contact me directly, Kate Maslowski, at kate@holistichealthcollab.com. You can just put podcast in your subject line. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.